So let me tell you, one of the things you need to do for a talk like this is you need to decide, are you going to drink Coca-Cola or water? How many think Coca-Cola for a speaker? How many think water? So why would you drink Coca-Cola? What's good about Coca-Cola? Right. What's bad? You might burp, right? And if you spill it, it's a mess. So let's get rid of the Coca-Cola. It's gone. Right? So we're going to talk about types of entrepreneurship and ways for you all to participate. First, let me just add a little bit to the introduction. My name is difficult for some people. The CH is like check, and the AIT is like wait for chait. So if you put it together, you get chait. Happy to talk to anybody. Rutgers and University of Pittsburgh, material science, physics, and then MBA. And I worked on a doctorate that I almost finished, but then I got a great job offer for Booz Allen on Park Avenue, so didn't finish that. Here's a pictorial of my work experience, which Robert described. And this is the path from Halliburton, which is oil field services and high temperature materials, to Booz Allen, to an English firm called PA, to SRI, and then back. And then finally, the last couple of steps into software and hardware of my own companies. So I was a late entrepreneur. I didn't start like some of you might right out of college or grad school. My last startup did semiconductors. We won a lot of green awards. We got rid of all the etching and plating chemicals and raised a lot of money from those kinds of investors. DFJ is Draper Fisher Jurvetson, and Tim Draper has been a speaker by video here at least once. Very interesting guy. Company was acquired, and they offered me a job in Singapore, and I said, I don't want to leave California. That's where I'm from, Silicon Valley. So I started doing this stuff. I started teaching and mentoring. I teach a little bit here. I teach at Menlo College. I teach at Notre Dame, and I also mentor, as Robert said, at these places, StartX and Startup Chile and Draper University. So I mentor startups. Some fun stuff. I'm married. 2 kids and a dog, as you can see. I've been to UFM a few times, many times, I think 10 in the last number of years. Top picture there is fishing with Manuel Ayala, which was a great fun. And then we do a big Halloween. We entertain 1,600 kids, 1,600 kids. I turn our front lawn into a show. It's an interactive show, so I'm constantly out there pulling strings and scaring people while my wife hands out candy. And some of the UFM, that's Sandy, Cynthia, and Maribel, who stopped by, and help with the celebration. It's not a good picture. It's the whole front lawn, the tree, the house, everything. I've run the New York City Marathon. Oh, and I used to do some magic. That's me raising money for muscular dystrophy a long time ago, as you can tell from the picture. I escaped from a barrel where I was chained in a little bathing suit. Okay, so what's an entrepreneur? Well, it's somebody who creates a new company and takes that risk, right? Running it, building it. Why would you become one? Why would you become an entrepreneur? Well, there's a number of reasons. You can change the world. There have been many things like that, right? More control of your own destiny. You're not working for someone. You can sometimes make a lot of money, but you can also do a lot for society. It is part of the DNA here at UFM. I mean, it's built into the college, the university. It creates a lot of jobs, and it really develops your talents. I mean, talk about getting another degree. doing a startup or becoming an entrepreneur is like getting another degree and another degree. And it can be fun. It's stressful, but it can be fun. This is a survey from MIT. Now, when you ask people, they don't always give you exactly what they're thinking, so this might be a little biased, but they ask what motivates the entrepreneurs: money, freedom, or change the world. How many think it was money? In Silicon Valley, you'd get many more hands than that. How many think it was the freedom to do what you want? Quite a few of you. And then change the world. All right, you're all going to change the world. Okay, great. Here's what the MIT folks said. Freedom was first, change the world next, and then money. And so it is what motivates a lot of entrepreneurs. So there are different types. When we talk entrepreneurship, it's not just one thing. And where I'm from, people think it's VCs, venture capital, and starting a new company is all there is. That is what we commonly call innovation-driven enterprise. Some of the literature talks about it as IDE. And it's you're going after a big market, typically VC or bank-funded or angel-funded. You want to make a big return. And these are the ones that get famous that you all know about: Google, Facebook, Cisco, HP. But there's a whole bunch of tier, like $100 million tier, that you don't see much in the newspaper. And they're all over the place. They're all over the world. Where we live, if you get lost, you make a wrong turn. Oh, look at that. There's Box, and there's WhatsApp, and they're all over the place. It's like somebody threw seeds. But that's innovation-driven enterprise. Then there's the small-medium enterprise. This is local companies, part of the local economy. You're a member of your local society. It's like maybe you have a small factory or a series of coffee shops, or my brother-in-law has several dry cleaners, and you make a good living. Send your kid, go on vacation, have a nice house, contribute to the community. That's a very important source of jobs, small, medium enterprise. Then we have intrapreneurship, which is what probably a lot of you will do. This is being an entrepreneur inside a company, inside a corporation, running a big project. What the advantage of this is you learn a lot of skills, but you don't have the same risks. You don't have to worry about making payroll or legal, because you're inside of a large company doing a big important project. And the last one I'll mention is social entrepreneurship. And this is where the primary goal is impact on society. They call it impact investing. It's not necessarily return on investment. You still have to make money unless you're supported by foundations. You still have to, balance the books. But the primary goal is to improve society. Impact is more important than returns. So those are the four main types, and you may find yourself opportunities throughout your life in many of these. You may move from one to another. I certainly did. And then you don't have to be the tech guru. There's lots of talent is needed. I mean, in some ways, there's more need for these kinds of folks. A great salesperson, wow, make or break a company. Marketing, communications, operations, who gets the job done? So those are all roles in addition to finance, engineers, HR. So you can participate in these kinds of companies and these kinds of ventures in many, many, many different roles. And I haven't listed them all. But I don't want you to think, I want to get out of this idea that it's the inventor with the breakthrough idea and that's all that counts. It's certainly not. Without the right sales and execution and operations people, we see companies go bankrupt all the time. So it is very important to have a balance. Now let's talk about the difference. Invention versus innovation. If we had time, we'd make this Socratic and I'd ask you to define it, but I see I have 32 minutes left. So invention versus innovation. So invention, it's usually something that hasn't existed before. That's generally what we think of. It's the first time it was created or developed. The first time radio was developed, or the first time a laser or a new biological. That we consider invention. Could be new technology. And it often takes time for the product to make it, for the technology to make its way to become a product. It can take years before the invention becomes a product. Innovate, and when I say products, by the way, I mean products and services. I just don't want to keep saying products and services, but just take that as given, the product and service. So innovation, here we're talking a newer, improved product or service or a better version of something new. And we see this all the time, right? The new version, the better this, the different way to get it done. The iPhone certainly wasn't first. The iPad wasn't first. They just did it better than somebody else, or everybody else, actually. So we see this, that's innovation. Anywhere in the value chain, I'll talk about that more. It doesn't even have to be the product. It can be the service, the delivery, the financing. It can be many things. And it doesn't even need to be technology-based. So innovation is what we'll talk about next. When I say it can occur anywhere in the value proposition, we're talking about an innovation can be in the business model, it can be in the brand, the customer experience, it can be in the channel, it can be in service. So you can make an innovative way to do service and beat your competition by doing something better than they do, not with the same product. You just do a better service. In my neighborhood, there's a body shop, and occasionally I need a body shop because somebody bangs into me or I back into somebody. And the service at this shop is just like, I wish everything was like this. The guy is terrific, and he sends me video updates, and he's made a mark for himself in California by service for a rather ordinary product. So you can do it in any part of the value chain. We'll talk about in detail. I don't have time to go through all of these, but let's just do the first three. It's commonly what people think about: product and service, process and systems, and business model. Product and service innovations. Classic, right? Faster, smarter, smaller, advanced features, easy to use, less expensive, more reliable. Could be environmental. It could be safety. It could be a regulation. And this is what we tend to think of. In fact, with my students, I try to get them out of this idea that this is the only way to do it. It's not just a new product or service, but this is very, very popular. And it doesn't need to be, a major breakthrough. I mean, what do we got here? Torn jeans and what is this thing called? A Fitbit or spinner? I don't know, something to take away your anxiety. Not very high technology, right? But a big market. And then you could make a green product. In California, everything has to be green. Most things that don't work very well, but that's California. So that's product and service. Process, better way of doing something. Secret, trade secret, like the formula for Coke, wherever that Coke bottle went. I hope it didn't leak. Trade secrets, patents, automation. Dell was very interesting, probably before most of you were born. But in the olden days, we would go to a computer store and they'd have inventory. The problem with you'd pick out a computer and buy it. You can still do that, of course. But the problem with that is things get old quickly, new technology, and the old stock. First of all, you had to buy the stock. Then you had problems with breakage. And sometimes they call it, I forget what they call it, but it's theft. Shrinkage is what they call it. It's theft. And so Dell came up with this idea: we're not going to even begin building it till we get your money and your spec. Time value of money. They get the money up front. You have nothing. You've given them your spec. They order the parts, build the computer, and ship it to you. It was a revolution in the process. So a new way of doing things. Of course, we talk about 3D printing, robotics. There's a whole list of ways that you can get process innovations, and you may be involved with some of those in the future. Business model. We see this a lot today. Everybody's selling our data. Every time you download an app or sign up for something, it's free, right? Well, the reason it's free is because they're selling us. They're selling our data to everybody else. That may be a fair trade-off, or maybe you don't like it, but that's a business model innovation. It allows you to provide free services, as does advertising, freemium, and of course examples: Dropbox, Airbnb, the upgrade so you can get LinkedIn for free, but to get a better version, you have to pay something. How many of you are on LinkedIn? Oh, this is good. This is good here. And my college is often, how many are incoming classes new to UFM? And lots of you have LinkedIn. That's very good. That's the business Facebook. You need to have a LinkedIn account. If you didn't raise your hand, sign up and get a LinkedIn account, because that's what business use. That's how we'll find you on business. So there are lots of business model innovations. Who knows razor blade? This is a famous old model. It's actually called, Gabrielle? Yeah. Who else? No, yeah. Razor blade it's actually taught in business schools. It's an old model, but it was pretty interesting in the beginning. The idea was, I'll give you the razor, because we don't use razors like this much anymore, but some do. And I'll give it, or at a low price. I'll give you the razor at a low price, or sell it at a low price, because I know you're going to be buying blades forever. It's a wonderful model if you can get somebody locked in like that. Can you anybody think of another example of razor blade? Exactly. Wow, you're fast here. Exactly. When I worked for a company that built these printers for other companies, contract manufacturing, it takes very little energy, very little cost to build a modern printer, and they sell them at break even or low price. Why? Because the ink is expensive and you're going to use it for the rest of your life. HP makes more money on ink than it does on any of its gadgets. So yeah, that's razor blade. And the innovation doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't even have to be technology. I mean, turn the ketchup bottle upside down. That's innovative, right? These things you stick on the back of your phone, or this pillow. This is a big business now. Anybody got a My Pillow? Is that popular in this country? Guys on TV all the time. So yeah, it doesn't even have to be technology. Okay, I want to switch a little bit. There's a professor by the name of Clayton Christensen. He's at Harvard, and he's voted consistently one of the top professors in the world, or business thinkers. He also has experience in he has experience in the commercial world as well as the academic world, which is always powerful when you can actually have done it and then go teach it. But he's very popular, Clayton Christensen. So I'm going to talk about his disruptive innovation a little bit. You probably will study some of this in some of your classes. The first category he's identified is sustaining innovation. And that's where you improve an existing product. You're targeting the existing customer base. It's the latest version of X, Y, or Z. And your better performance, it's smaller, it's faster, your iPhone 11 is, faster than my iPhone 6, and it's those kinds of things. But it doesn't create much new market. I mean, you replace what you already have, right? It's important for competitive advantage. There's a battle to stay ahead. It doesn't create a lot of jobs. Like I said, if you buy an electric car, you're replacing maybe the existing car. So it doesn't generate a lot of jobs. But it's a good opportunity for a startup because they buy you. You do something you create something for your product, and they look at it as, well, it would take us $100 million in 2 years to develop what they've already developed, so I'll just buy that company. That's sustaining innovation. It's hard to compete in this area, but if you do, typically you're acquired. So that's existing. And here's examples, right? It's upgrades, new versions of existing products. People stand in line outside the Apple store in the rain to get the next great product. I don't know why they do that, but I wouldn't. This is a difficult thing. You've got to convince the person who already has a product that there's some advantage. And it's what is called in the academic world overserved customers. I'm overserved by my phone. I don't use what's there already. So convincing me to get a better one is hard. What am I going to get? More storage, more battery life maybe, but I mean, there's things on there that I don't need now. So this is a difficult can be a difficult sale. The techies and the early adopters and the people that must have the latest and greatest, they're right there in line. They're there, but it is not a big job creator. Efficiency innovations are disruptive, not sustaining. This is the first of Christensen's disruptive models. And this is the overserved who don't need more. Like I said, I'm happy with my existing phone. But this creates an opportunity for lower cost, where I will give up some of the features to get lower cost, even lower quality. They push and push and push, and they get a $1,000 phone, and then somebody comes in with a $75 phone. There's a classic example in the construction industry with steel, where the main steel mills were making all the grades of steel, and somebody came along and figured out how to make reinforcing bar a lot cheaper and just took over that market because they didn't need all of the high quality. All right? So that's the efficiency innovation. And this shifts production from one company to another, or sometimes from one country to another. Sometimes the way you get the efficiency is to put the plant in a low-cost region. You move it to China, for example, or you bring it here where the cost of production is less than California or something like that. Doesn't create many new jobs. It tends to shift them from place to place. It's important. It frees up capital, but it is not a massive job creator. And the overserved customers, there's lots of examples, but here's the iPhone 11. In our country, it's about $1,000. Our son just bought this, the Moto G7 for $200. Does all he needs. It's only $200. And then your mom might like the Jitterbug. It's simple, big buttons, and easy to use, right? So you have these tiers that are created by efficiency innovation, and they tend to be disruptive. What often happens is some of these lower ends sometimes move up market and start to challenge the leader. They start to add things. So it can be a disruptive innovation. The new market innovation, this is the one that really drives the world in a lot of ways. It's empowering. We'll take a few more minutes on this one. Important concept. This is your marketing to non-consumers. Say, how can my customer be a non-customer today? It's people that are not currently your customers. And that's a little bit difficult concept. I'll try to explain it. So you're making a new market. You're making things easy to use. You're empowering people to do things that they didn't even know they needed, right? And it has the potential to create a huge number of jobs. In Christensen's latest book, he talks about this as a way to bring third world countries up to higher employment by looking for ways to allow people who are not customers to become customers by modifying the process. And I'll give you an example of that from Africa in a moment. So here's a simple example of to make it easy to understand, a non-consumer. So you go to the water park. You're too young to have kids, so you go to the water park with your nieces or nephews or your sister, brother, or the parents bring their kids to the water park. And the question is, are you going to bring your good camera or your good iPhone to the water park? You might if you have the right housing. You're probably not. So you're a non-consumer. You're not going to have pictures that day. When you buy your ticket, they have for sale disposable waterproof cameras. Now, this isn't going to take pictures like your iPhone or your single lens reflex camera, but your comparison is not, is it as good as this camera? Your comparison is against not having any pictures at all. So, say cheese. Eventually, it'll fill up one class at a time or one lecture at a time, and you drop it in the wherever, and it's old-fashioned. This is film, right? But the comparison is against not having anything at all. So that is an example, a simple example of non-consumption, of selling to non-consumers. A more bigger examples, computers were, when they were originally developed, were only available to people in big organizations, universities, research institutes, large companies. You're all too young, except the people sitting down here in the front. You're all too young to remember this, but you had to go to the computer room and do your work. It was air conditioned, had a raised ceiling, floor. It had cables underneath. You know, you might have had a badge to get in. It was not something they wanted you fooling around with. I know, because I fooled around with one, and it didn't work well for me. So that's the original Apple II. When those came out, they created an entirely new market. This didn't compete with this. This was people who were non-consumers of this. They didn't even know they needed a computer. The CEO of one of the major computer companies said, nobody's going to want a computer in their house. So it was bought by non-consumers of big computers. And today, what do we have? Billions of computers everywhere. You're all sitting with, how many of you own transistors? How many of you have seen transistors? How many own transistors? I shouldn't ask you this because I'm giving away for my Monday lecture. You all own billions of transistors. They're in your pocket right now. Billions. If you've got a modern cell phone, it's at least 2-3 billion. If you've got a laptop, it's a couple billion. So you're all owners of, you couldn't see them because they're smaller than microscopic. But today we have billions of PCs. Another example, here's one that for a third world market, Mo Ibrahim, this is a famous case, Celtel. He went in 1998, was trying to create a market in Africa, and he could get no funding. The banks, the VCs, the investment people said, you're crazy. People don't have money for a cell phone. And he figured out a way to have low-cost cell phones, simple phones. Some of them were used, recycled, and then this scratch card. So you could buy minutes, no expensive subscription. Now today that's obvious. You can buy a one-time phone. But this was a very big deal in 1998. You buy this this cell phone, and then you buy a scratch card, and you bought 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it was. This took off in Africa. He sold his company for $3.4 billion. And people told him there was no market in Africa. So he created a market for people who were non-consumers. They were not buying cell phones. And he made it possible for a whole bunch of people to buy cell phones. Again, DNA testing, another example, where it used to be you had a lab. It was a big deal, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars. And now, a couple of Christmases ago, my wife bought us the DNA test. You spit in the tube and you send it away, and they tell you and it's $99. So it opens a market for non-consumers. I would never have been a customer for this. I did this for this. I turned out I have less Neanderthal than the average person. I don't think that's good. I think Neanderthals were robust people. But anyway, that's true. It was a very, I was hoping to find, like my grandmother grew up in Argentina. I was hoping to find something really unique, like I was half Chinese or something. And it turned out I was mostly Russian, and I had less Neanderthal than the rest of you. So, okay, so where do innovations come from? Observing, questioning, experimenting. Do that all the time. I do it. The first one, observing, I can't help myself. I'm always looking. Why did they do it this way? Why is this like this? This is a stupid way to do that. How did they check us onto this airplane? Or why does the water, observing. In fact, there's a famous IDEO, a design, maybe you know it, a design consultancy. They did the Apple design. They did the mouse design. And they say their biggest source of innovation is anthropology, is looking at what people do. So observing, questioning, and experimenting. And don't be afraid to challenge. Ask, why do we do it this way? You might get in trouble. You might step on some toes. It's worth it. Push boundaries. Question, so-called wisdom. I mean, I have a couple examples in my own career where why don't we do this? Well, we did it once and it didn't work. Well, I just couldn't help myself. I did it and it did work. I don't know why yours didn't. Mine did, and it was kind of a revolution for my company. So can we do something simpler, cheaper, smaller? Why not? What if? At Draper University, which is a boot camp, which a few of you have gone to, not you, but there have been some, Liha, Maria, I forgot her last name. Yeah, so I have a picture with her at Draper University. In fact, I was going to bring a notebook that says, I will fail and fail again till I succeed. That's a boot camp to teach you how to be an entrepreneur in 5 weeks. The best innovations often combine the liberal arts with technology. Steve Jobs was great at this. When he was fired, he went and studied calligraphy, and that got him interested in fonts. And his interest in fonts led him to the desktop publishing revolution that actually saved Apple. He liked quiet. I like quiet. He liked quiet, and he didn't want a fan in the computer because it made a lot of noise. And so that required his team to come up with a different power supply. It's called switch mode power supply, but he wanted it quiet. He liked good-looking equipment. If you open up an Apple, which nobody does, but if you were to take it apart and take apart most PCs, it's beautiful inside, and yet nobody sees it. That's probably why it costs more too. Not probably, it is why. He would wander around high-end department stores and parking lots looking at the trim on Mercedes and BMW and Cuisinart and fancy kitchenware, trying to get ideas from that. So, and some of my ideas have come from the few courses that I took that were outside my major, that were in the liberal arts. So he says it's technology married with humanities that makes our hearts sing. A successful innovation typically has most of these things that you see. And it's very important to have at least most of them. This business with the team, I've had people fund my projects simply they didn't quite understand what I was talking about. They kind of understood, but they figured, well, I'll make something happen. Because whatever you tell a VC or investor you're going to do, chances are you're going to have to pivot to something else. It's hardly ever that you do exactly what you said you were going to do. But, you've got to reduce some pain, fill a need, create value. It's great if you have some secret sauce. Can you make money doing this? I've seen lots of ideas where the money just doesn't make it work. It's better the bigger the market. And is the timing right? There are ideas like, I was working with a gentleman, scientist, who had the idea for an e-reader, electronic book, like some of you are looking at right now. And the technology wasn't available to do the screen. We were 5-10 years ahead of time. YouTube, everybody uses YouTube, right? If YouTube had been 5 years or 10 years earlier, the bandwidth was just not available for it to be feasible. If they'd have brought it back then, downloading a movie would have taken about 3 hours. There was no such thing as the bandwidth we have now. So YouTube happened at the time it did because things came together at the right time. But you still see people pushing things today that the timing isn't right. You see it a lot in solar and batteries and a lot of things where the timing's just not right. We don't have enough technology just yet. So timing is important. Most innovations come from diverse experiences and many people. Teams are very powerful. Innovation clusters. So in fact, the Antigua Forum, where I'm going this afternoon, Giancarlo talked about the coffee break model, where everybody gets, you're in a presentation like listening to me, and some of you are interested, some of you are not, but then we go out in the lobby and we talk. And that's where a lot of the power comes from. There's actually a lot of history about that. Giancarlo was the coffee break. There's a coffee shop model where people would go in Europe and sit at a coffee shop and argue about philosophy and things. There is the Medici effect, bringing people together. In fact, there's a book called The Medici Effect, which I recommend, bringing people together from diverse areas to talk. The Medicis did that in science and architecture and art. There's the Islamic Golden Age, where they did the same thing. So many teams. There's this myth of the lone inventor. It does happen occasionally, but it's rare. Sir Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web, but that's rare. Mostly it's a team, and it's a team with diverse experiences. So I want to leave you with that thought. UFM, today, you're entering on a journey, and it offers you the opportunity to increase your experiences enormously. I am always just stunned at how many things are going on at a university this size. It's like you're doing as much as Stanford. And don't hold back. You just can't miss this opportunity. You've got to go for it. Build your portfolio of experiences. Gabrielle gave me a list, and this is only a partial list because I know we're not going to read it. But here's just an example of things going on. And there were things on here I had no idea, and I've been hanging around here for years. And there's so many things going on. I'm encouraging you to take advantage of them. And that sounds like maybe, that's standard advice, but I really mean it. What we did was, how do you minimize your regrets? This is, Tom Hazlett suggested I look at what Jeff Bezos said. He calls it the regret minimization framework. In X years, will I regret not doing this? Yes, do it. No, don't bother. I'm leaning towards the yes. I don't mean dangerous. Well, dangerous is okay. I don't mean things that might get you in trouble or harm your health. Not real dangerous, but skiing and hiking and climbing mountains. But the things you can do here and the people you can meet here. I have to push myself sometimes to go to the next event because I go to a lot and I'm tired. And I go to something, I meet somebody, and it's like, wow, I would never have realized I should have. It could change your whole life. So what we did, Helmut and Monica, we surveyed graduates from here, and I walked around asking other people from other universities, and even some rather older people like me, what would you wish you had done more of? Now, this is looking back. Many of you are just starting your journey here, and so you've got time to make sure you minimize any regrets. But what would you wish you had done more of? Common answers. Taken a course outside my major. I was an engineering major, and back in the old days, I got a computer card with my courses printed for me. I had almost no selection, especially first 2 years. There were open electives, and they leaned on us to take an elective in technology. Well, I said, no, it's an open elective. So I took ethics and philosophy. I took some courses at a different campus, the women's campus, partly to meet women, of course. But those were a change of culture. So explore alternate fields, try completely new things. They wish they had done more activities, plays, sports, clubs. I did a few of those, but I came out of a situation where we had no money and my father had just passed away. And so it was hard to do too many things. But I was the editor of the magazine, and I did a few things. So I have regrets that I didn't do more. Another answer was build a better contact and better network. Write down everybody you meet. Put a note in your computer about who they are, where you met them. Do that your whole life. You will be amazed at the network you create and how it comes in handy at times. Many of them wish they had done an internship, gained some work experience, been a research assistant or a teaching assistant, traveled more if you can afford it, take a semester off. This surprised me. Study harder. I can relate to that. I wish I really did understand advanced integral calculus. I've never needed it. I got through it, but I haven't a clue today what it was all about. And I wish I did understand that. I really do. And then ask for advice. This is something that I wish I had done more of. Ask for advice. Turned out when you do, doors open. I found the scholarship. I took the pressure off. I was able to do more things. So this is just a list of what we found out from. And thank you, Monica and Helmut, if you're in here. Helmut, thank you. And Gabrielle, we ask people about these kinds of things. So I want you to minimize regrets and have fun. And I'm going to leave you with this idea. So I want to leave you with this, with a visual, so you remember this. So I'm going to write down regrets on this piece of paper. These are your regrets. I'm now going to risk getting in trouble.